One thing that I want to cover here before we start getting into all the things that have to do with Dubsado is to go over 5 key tips for a new Dubsado user. Now, I know we probably have some people in here who are brand new to Dubsado, and I want to go ahead and cover 5 things to kind of give you a good mindset going into Dubsado and what to expect. So we'll go through these kind of quickly here. Number 1, there's more than one right way to use Dubsado. We basically provide the options or the tools, and you decide what it is that you need. Now, one of my goals for this webinar is to show you the tools that we have. That's one thing I'm going to really deep dive into today, is just to show you the tools of what we have. But the goal is to use the tools that you need for your specific process. And there's more than one right way to set it up. You can kind of think about Dubsado as a blank canvas with multiple brush sizes, colors, different things like that. And you're going to choose from that how you want to make your painting. That's what Dubsado offers you. So you don't have to think to yourself, well, my process is different than my neighbors or someone else who I know in my industry. That's okay. There's definitely more than one right way to set it up. So you're not locked into just one area or one process. Number 2, test things early and often. You're going to hear me say this throughout the next 3 weeks, but the more that you know about Dubsado, the more that you understand how the system works, the better your workflows are going to run for you. So the more that you test things early and often and get and understand how the system works, the better it's going to be for you, I promise. Number 3, templates are the easiest way to streamline. So we're talking about streamlining your business process. We're talking about using Dubsado so that you can take on more clients, that you can scale your business. Well, developing pieces of content that you can reuse over and over again will speed up what you are trying to accomplish, which allows you to take on more people. One analogy I like to use is that the goal with Dubsado is to duplicate yourself. You're trying to take what it is that you do and then have Dubsado do that over and over again. That's the whole goal. And templates are a great way to accomplish that. Number 4, the more complex your process is, the more features and content you'll need to set up. This is kind of going along with number 1, where you might have a business process that's very simple. You send out a proposal, contract, invoice, and then you go to work. There might be other people who are wanting to use our client portals, our scheduler. You're wanting to use proposals and questionnaires and task boards and workflows and all these other things. So the more complex your process is, the more stuff you're going to need to set up. And that means more of a time commitment. One question we get a lot is, how long does it take to set up your Dubsado account? It really varies. We have people who just use Dubsado to send out invoices. And then, like I said, we have people who use it for everything. They have all their things, time tracker, all this stuff that they're doing. So it really varies on your business process. So it's kind of hard to lock in exactly this is how long it takes, because everybody's business runs differently. Number 5, go at your own pace. There is no need to rush in getting Dubsado set up. Yes, the goal with these next 3 weeks is to get your Dubsado set up, but you don't have to have it set up after these 3 weeks. Time commitment is key, but at the same time, there's always things that are coming up. People live lives and things come up. So don't rush getting your Dubsado set up. Go at your own pace. It's okay if it takes you a little bit longer than somebody else. The whole point is to retain the information and really learn how Dubsado works. So just 5 key tips just to have the right mindset coming into this. And so we'll go ahead and jump into the basics and get into Dubsado. So we'll just start right here. So the basics, the first thing that you should do before you do anything else in Dubsado, and I know some of you, the tendency is to jump straight into workflows the moment you sign up for an account. Don't do that. You'll see why as we go through this webinar here. But the number 1 thing that you should do is to set up your initial settings. We call them, or not initial, essential settings. We call them the essential settings because these are the ones that are kind of the core settings that are going to be crucial for you when you start using Dubsado. We have a ton of other settings. We won't cover all of those. We just want to go over the essential settings first. So let me pop over to Dubsado here. And where I'm at is up here in the top right, there's a little settings gear. That's the page that I'm on. So when you first sign up, you should start right here. So the first one we're going to talk about is the branding page, which is where I'm at right now. The branding page is where you're going to kind of set up your, brand settings, the different things like your logo, your color, which is going to be for all of the buttons that get generated to click on content, your business name, business email, address, all that good stuff. So here's where you can import your logo. You can put that in there. That's number one. Number two is the receive money tab, which is going to be right here. This is where you're going to set up your payment processor. So with Dubsado, we have 3 different payment processors that you can link up with: Stripe, Square, and PayPal. And so I won't dive into all the details there of getting everything set up underneath there because you'll have to log into your own account there. But receive money is where you're going to link up your processor. If you accept payment through another way, so if you're doing like Cash App or Venmo or Cash or check or anything like that, there are ways where you can manually apply payments to invoices. But if you want it to automatically go onto the invoice, you'll link up your payment processor here, and that will automatically get put onto invoices for you into your transactions and all of that. So that's number 2, set up your payment processor. And number 3 is your email. In Dubsado, if you want to send things from your email, you'll need to link up your email here. With each brand, you're only able to set up one incoming/outgoing email, but that will come from right here. So whatever email it is that you want to use, you'll plug it in right here. There'll be a place where you can either log in with Google, or there's a way that you can use SMTP to set up your email. If you have any questions about getting your email set up, feel free to shoot us a chat message down here in the bottom right. You can email us, hello@dubsado.com, and we can help you get your email set up if you're having any difficulty there. But you'll want to for sure set up your email that way. Everything that you're sending is coming from your email, and everything that you receive is going into your email with Dubsado clients. So make sure to get your email set up. And number 4, we're going to go over here to the calendar in the main menu, and we'll click there. And we'll go up here to calendar settings, and we'll click there. So this is where you can link up your calendar. Now, with the calendar, you're going to, technically you can import and export out to a calendar that you bring in. Right now, you're only able to link up with a few different ones as far as Google or iCal. You're going to use Chronify to get that set up. And once you get it brought in, as you can see, all of the available calendars underneath that account will be available for you to link into Dubsado. So that way, if you have meetings, work, and this is actually my calendar here, but if you have, workouts, different things like that, all of these separate calendars will be able to be brought into Dubsado. And when you're talking about the scheduler and different things like that, it can cross-reference whatever calendars you have being brought in and also export onto those calendars. So make sure to get your calendar set up, especially if you're wanting to use the scheduler, because the only way the scheduler will block off the time that you need is through this once you have that imported. So those are the 4 different things that we would call the essential brand settings that you should get set up first before anything else. A couple things that I do want to mention really quickly before we go on, since we're on the settings page, is the integrations. These are not essential. You don't have to have these, but for the people who are using them, I do want to mention these really briefly before we keep going. Number 1, we do link up with Zapier. So if you are, wanting to send information over to another platform, or once someone does something in another platform, bring that into Dubsado, we have Zapier, and you can use that. QuickBooks and Xero. So for accounting purposes, we do have connections there. Xero is actually something really new that we have, which is very exciting. How our integrations with QuickBooks and Xero work is once you get paid in Dubsado, that information, the invoice and the payments will go into either QuickBooks or Xero. So it's basically a one-way sync between Dubsado and either one of those platforms. That way you can do all of your, invoice or all of your accounting, all of that in a separate platform. So it's just a one-way sync, QuickBooks to, or Dubsado to QuickBooks or Dubsado to Xero. But that will get all of your information over into there, so you don't have to manually enter in payments on QuickBooks or Xero. And then the other thing that we have is video conferencing, and especially with just the climate of everything that's going on, this is very crucial, where you can connect to Zoom. We have Google Meet, 8x8, Microsoft Teams, and you can connect your video conferencing. So that way, if you're using our scheduler, it can create those Zoom links or those Google Meet links or Microsoft Team links. So you can definitely connect there. So those are just some of the big ones that we have. We also have CloudSpot, but that's more for a certain niche with photography. But those are some of the core integrations that we have there. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly before we move on. If you have any questions about that, need help troubleshooting, feel free to send us a chat message. That's going to be the best way to get something troubleshooted or fixed if you're having trouble connecting any of those. Okay, let's move on here. Now we're going to jump into kind of the foundation pieces of Dubsado. If you understand how this works from a foundational perspective, it's going to help you out tremendously when you're doing your organizing, keeping track of clients, all of that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, what is a client in Dubsado? A client is the primary point of contact for the product or service that you are providing. They are the person that you're going to be communicating with the most. That's the most important thing to know, is the person that you're going to be talking to the most is going to be the client. A great example of that is, let's say you do like senior photography, and you don't really want to be emailing the senior because you're worried that they're not going to be checking their emails or all of that, and you're mainly going to be emailing the parent. That's where you would have the parent be the primary client, because they're the ones that are going to be receiving all of the emails via your workflow. So that's just kind of a good understanding of that. So you have a client, they're the person you're going to be communicating with. And then that client is going to be set up with a project. Now you can think about a project as a folder for that client. So when you have a client in Dubsado, it's very similar to having a huge file cabinet, and that is for your client. Inside of that file cabinet, you have all of these folders, and each one of those folders is a project in Dubsado. So every time that you work with somebody, you would want to have a new project get created. Now, all of the communication that you do with a client goes through a project, sending forms, emails, invoices, contracts. Your workflows will run through projects. Everything is project-based in Dubsado. Now, with the projects, it's important to know that if you're more of a client-based business, you don't have to think about projects in that way. Just think about it as a folder for the client. So let's jump over here into the projects page. And if you're brand new to Dubsado, this is going to be where you manage all of your clients, everyone that you're in communication with. So as soon as someone is showing interest in working with you, they should be set up with a project immediately. And I'll explain why here in just a second. So on this page, we're going to get into all of the cool organizational things in our last session that we have in a few weeks. But today we're going to be covering just the core information. So with this, you can see here that I have a list of clients, and each one is set up with a project or a folder. So inside of each one of these projects is where you're going to do all of your communication. Like I said, you have your emails tab here, your invoices tab, forms tab, appointments, workflows, tasks, and notes. Everything that you do for this particular service is going to be in here. You have your client info, your client portal information. We'll get into that in just a little bit. All of these different things here, but inside the project is going to be where you communicate with your client. It's like taking a look inside of a folder. So I have all of these different clients here with their different with their different folders. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is leads and jobs. So when you have a project set up for your client, that project can either be classified as a lead project or a job project. So up across the top here, you'll see these two kind of macro statuses is what we call them. They're project statuses, but you can either have leads or jobs. They're going to fall into one of those two categories. Everybody who is in the job section here should be somebody who is booked with you. So in your business, you have to know, what is it that makes a client booked? Is it them signing a contract? Is it them paying an invoice or a deposit? Maybe it's them paying the full invoice. You have to have that marker and know, what is it that makes a client booked? If they are booked, their status should be a job status, because that means they're booked with you. Over here on the left-hand side is the leads section. This is going to be for anybody who is not booked with you. So that means maybe they contacted you on your website page and they said, hey, I really want to jump on the phone and get more information from you, or could you send me some of your pricing? They're not booked with you yet. They have not crossed that milestone that says, okay, now they're booked. So you have your leads over here on the left-hand side and your jobs over here on your right-hand side. And you can update the status, which we'll get into, like I said, a lot more of the statuses and things like that in later sessions. But just so you have an understanding of how you can separate your projects. Now, the reason why this projects page is going to be where you manage everybody is because, let's say that you have something going in like MailChimp or Flowdesk, where you're running like newsletters or email blasts or different things like that. Once that person shows direct interest, so again, let's say you have a newsletter going and someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I saw that you're doing this or you have this coming up. I'd love to know more information about it. As soon as they show and say, hey, I'm interested in working with you, they should immediately be set up with a lead project. So that way you can start communicating with them, sending them your emails, sending them forms they need to fill out, or a scheduler, all of those different things. That's why you want to have a project set up immediately once they show interest. If they fall off, if they aren't a good lead, you can always archive them over here. We'll get into kind of how to automate some of those things, but underneath the actions drop down, you can always archive projects that are dead leads or they're not moving forward. But you always want to have a project set up immediately. That way you can start communicating with them. So those are the two main categories or the main statuses that we have. And like I said, we'll get into all of the, smaller project statuses and all of that later. But I just wanted to give you kind of an understanding on how that works. And once you have someone who's a lead, they could transition and become a job project later on, once they sign a contract, once they pay an invoice and all of that. So excellent. So we have clients, projects, leads, and jobs. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is a lead capture form. So we know that we need to have people who come in here and are lead projects, but how do we get people into Dubsado? So if we go underneath templates here, and we're going to talk a lot about templates today, but we're going to go to the forms section first. And this is going to be where you have all of your master form templates, all the templates as far as forms are concerned that you're going to need to send to clients. It's all going to be here. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's what's called a lead capture form. That's going to be the form that you can put on your website in order to get people into Dubsado. So let's jump into this form here really quickly. With forms in Dubsado, and I'm going to kind of, start fresh with this just in case there is someone in here who's not familiar with building forms. With forms in Dubsado, over here on the right-hand side are what we call elements. And this is what you can add to forms to build them to ask the questions that you want to ask. So drop-down boxes, short answers, yes, no questions, text boxes, all of these cool things. You can click and drag these onto your form so that you can basically form your forms or develop your forms to ask the questions that you need to be asking. This should be the form that just gets enough information to get them into the system. So I'm asking questions that would go on, let's say, a website, or if I'm going to send this out to somebody. Once you're done building this form, up here in the top, there's a share button. If you click on that, it will give you two different ways that you can share this form. You can either embed it on your website. So take that code, put that into Wix or Squarespace or WordPress or whatever system it is that you're using. You can embed this form on your website. So that way, once someone fills this out, a new lead project gets created in the system. So we already talked about leads and jobs, and you want that new project to come in. Once they fill this out, a new lead gets created. The other way that you can do it is with this direct link. With this link, you can basically put this anywhere. So you can put this on your Instagram bio or on Facebook or on LinkedIn. If you want to text this to somebody, you could. Another thing that I've seen people do is they'll take this link here and they'll bookmark it on their own computer. So if they, kind of fill out forms for their clients, maybe you get a lot of cold emails or you get phone calls and you need to actually put them in manually, you can just bookmark this on your own computer, open it up, and you can fill it out as if you're the client. And it does the same thing. It just makes that new lead project. So however you want to use it, if you want to use the iframe code, maybe you don't have a website but still want to use this, you can take this direct link and you can use this anywhere. So that's how you can share this with people. And like I said, once they fill this out, a new lead project gets created. The other purpose for a lead capture form is also to start your workflows. So not only is this going to create a project, but the workflows that you design, you can have them start in those projects once they fill out this form. So before we talk about just how to start workflows from this form and all of that, I want to take a second just to visually look at a workflow so you have an understanding of what's going to be added to this form, just so you have context. So I'm going to go to templates here and workflow. And we're only going here just so you can kind of get an idea of what a workflow looks like. We're going to get into automation workflows and all of that in our last session, but we're just going to take a look here at workflows just so you have an idea of what it looks like. So I have a workflow here, and as you can see, there's two things that I want you to pay attention to with this workflow. Number one is that it's a list of steps. So it's literally a list of what you want the workflow to do. These are all steps that are happening in your workflow step by step. And you're programming, obviously, when you want things to go out and all that good stuff. So number one, it's a list of steps that can get added into a project. And number two, you'll notice that I have content in here. So I have a 30-minute consultation scheduler. I have a form going out, a bridal questionnaire. I have, let's see, is there anything else in this one? I don't have anything else in here, but you can see that I have content that's in this workflow. So you're going to hear me say it a lot over the next couple weeks. Your workflow is literally your business process and your content that you need to send out. That's what a workflow is. So if you see visually what this looks like, what you can do is you can add this into your lead capture so it starts in that project that gets created. So let's jump back over to the lead capture form and we're going to talk about this here. So there's two ways that you can start a workflow from this form. Number one, up at the top, if we click on the settings tab up here, there's a little space that's called default workflow, and you can add a workflow to start here once they fill out this form. Now, for default workflow, you only want to be using this if you have the exact same process start for everybody. So that means it's not based off of what they're interested in. It has nothing to do with that. You're someone in a business who anyone who fills out this form, you want the exact same set of actions to get added into their project. Just like what we looked at, everyone gets the exact same thing. If that's you, then this is the perfect opportunity for you to use the default workflow. Let's go back to the form here to show you the second way. The other way you can get a workflow to start is by asking a question on this form, and based off of their answer, you can have a different workflow start. Now, with this particular brand, this is a brand that I used for hair and makeup artists. And so this might not be exactly your industry, but just so you have an idea of what this looks like and what you can do, there is what's called the workflow element. That's what we call it here. And you can add this to your form. And I actually have one on this form here. It says, what is the occasion? If I click into this, you can change the question around to whatever you want it to say. What service are you interested in? What type of event are you having? All of those different things. But as you can see here, based off of their answer, they'll click and choose what answer they're actually doing. I can have a different workflow start based off of the answer. So if they choose wedding, I could have a wedding workflow. If they choose that they're wanting to do hair and makeup for a sweet 16 party, I can have a different workflow start. Or if they're doing something for print and film, I could have a different workflow start from there. The reason that you want to start with this in Dubsado is that if you've already gone in and started building your workflows without understanding how they start, then you might have to go back and redo all of your workflows. By setting up this form, you're basically setting up the framework for how your workflows are going to start. Before you start building them, you want to come in here and say, okay, how are my workflows going to start? Am I going to do a default workflow? Am I going to do this option here where I have different lanes for them to go down? Do I need multiple lead capture forms and each one has its own workflow? There's so many different things that you can do when it comes to lead captures that you want to start here first. Then from here, as you can start to see, if they choose wedding, they're probably going to be getting different forms, different emails. There's probably different tasks that you need to do than if they were to do Sweet 16. If they do Sweet 16, they're going to get different emails than wedding. They'll probably get different forms, different questionnaires to fill out, maybe a different proposal. So once you have this laid out, now you can start to see your lanes that you're going to go down and your processes that you're going to have from here. So I wanted to spend more time with the lead capture because it's so crucial to understand how your leads are going to come in and how your workflows are going to start. Very, very crucial here. So those are the two different ways, and I have that listed here, the two purposes: creating new projects and starting workflows. And there's two different ways that you can share that lead capture form. So those are kind of the Dubsado basics at a foundational level. That's how you get them in. They're set up with the project. Now you're ready to roll. From here, now it's going to start kind of leaking out into different industries, different processes, and now's where you really need to take inventory on exactly what stuff you're going to need out of what I'm going to show you here, and you're going to start planning it out. So now we're going to get into templates, and this is going to be what we spend the rest of our time on, is going through each one of these templates. Now, what I'm going to show you, and the reason that I'm going to show you these things, is just to give you examples of what's possible. Remember at the beginning, I said that we're going to give you tools. You decide what it is that you need for your specific business. So to the best of my ability, I'm going to kind of give you some examples here of these different things, the purposes that they're used for, and you can start to say, okay, I know I'm going to need this. I know I'm going to need that. So that's what the rest of the time that we're going to spend today is more just showing you what is in the system as far as templates and content that you can create. Learning what templates and features that Dubsado has to offer and how they work first will help you set up your workflows. So number one, the first thing we're going to talk about here is canned emails. So over here underneath templates, when you're brand new to Dubsado, you're going to spend a lot of time in templates just to prepare you. Remember, one of the 5 keys that we talked about is the importance of templates. So when you're new, you're going to spend a lot of time building all of the different things that you're going to need in Dubsado. So let's jump into canned emails here and talk through these. So when you sign up for Dubsado, you will get these emails here that you see. These come in your account. So these are just sample emails that come with each account that you can use, you can edit, different things like that. But the purpose of canned emails is to create email templates that you use a lot with clients. So if you have welcome emails, thank you emails, if you have payment reminders, appointment reminders, if you have, let's say you have emails that say, hey, we're not a good fit, here's a list of people that I recommend, inquiry emails, all of these different things, if there's check-in emails, all of those emails that you typically send to clients, you're going to want to put them in here. When you're building your workflow, you're going to be pulling from these email templates. So if you don't have your emails built, then when you open up your workflow to send emails out, it's going to say, which one of these do you want to use to send out? If you don't have it written, you have to go back and write it and then go back to the workflow. So it's very important to get your email templates in here. And there's, like I said, there's a bunch that come with the account. You can edit these, change them around. You can write your own if you want to, but that's what the purpose of canned emails are. Another thing that I'll help you with, if some people are saying, hey, I don't really know what canned emails to write, not only do we have these here, but you can think to yourself, what emails have you sent out to more than 3 people? If you're taking an email and sending it out to more than 3 people, that's a canned email. Put that in here. The more emails that you have in here, the more ammunition you have to pull from for your workflow. So even if it's something that you may not use very much, but you just want to have, put it in there. It might take a couple minutes, but just add that in there, and then you can use that with your workflow. So that's what canned emails are. Number 2, contracts and sub-agreements. So now we're going to go back to the forms page here, and we're going to talk through a couple of these. The contracts in Dubsado and the sub-agreements are for getting electronic signatures from your clients. So the contract here, we're just going to jump into a contract. And with this contract, this is where you can put your main terms and conditions that you want your client to sign off on. So for systems that are like DocuSign or HelloSign, where you're creating your contracts, sending them out, and having the client sign those electronically, Dubsado can do that for you here. Now, we talked about building templates and using the elements over here. With the contracts, there's 2 things that are different with these contracts than with this form than with any other form. And that's the signature area and the initials box here. All of the other forms except for this and sub-agreements don't have these 2 elements. So what you can do here is you can add initials boxes maybe in between each one of your different paragraphs. If you need them to initial off, you can put those in there. But that gives your client a chance to initial. And then at the bottom down here, we'll scroll down, you can see where you can add in a space for your client to sign, a space for you as the business owner to sign, and you can add those into the form here. And that way you can send it out to the client and they can sign. One thing that I will mention, because we do get a lot of questions on here about this, right now you're only able to have 1 signature for a client on here. If you have 2 spaces for a client, they have to sign at the same time on the same computer, because once you sign a contract, you can't go back in and reopen it. So it would have to be signed at the same time. So normally we just advise this can only be used and signed by 1 person. And that's just kind of how our system is set up right now, but we are working on getting it where you can have multiple signatures on there. But I did want to just mention that because we do get a lot of questions there. But with a contract, the main purpose of this is to have your terms and conditions here. With projects in Dubsado, you can only have 1 main contract per project. Let me jump over to a project here just so you can see. And we'll open this up here. So in the top left, this is going to be where your main terms and conditions contract is located. So each project can have 1 main contract. If you need more than 1 contract, anything that's like a secondary contract, that's where sub-agreements come into play. So let's go back to the sub-agreements here and we'll talk through these. So what are sub-agreements great for? Sub-agreements are great for anything that needs additional signatures that cannot go on the main contract. So that would be great if you're in the design realm for proofs. One that I have here is a photo release form. So this is for hair and makeup. And like I said, that's kind of the industry here, but you can see that you could plug in a photo that you want to use on your website. And then down at the bottom, they could sign off and say, yes, you can use this, especially for photographers. This would help out a lot. You can use this form for, let's say, like a non-disclosure agreement. You could use this for maybe like an accountability thing that if you're a coach and you want someone to fill out like an accountability pledge form. Sub-agreements are perfect for anything COVID related. So if you want to keep your main contract intact, and you also want them to, contract amendment and the terms are different now, you can use sub-agreements for anything COVID related. So that's a great example of why you would use sub-agreements there. So anything that needs additional signatures, you can still put signatures and initials on sub-agreements. Now, the next thing we'll talk about are questionnaires. Questionnaires are great for getting more information from a client that you wouldn't typically ask on a lead capture form. Now, a lot of people are kind of confused about the difference between lead capture and questionnaire. When do you use each one? A lead capture form, remember, anytime someone fills out a lead capture, a new project gets created. So this should only be used enough to get the information, enough to get them in the system. So typically with lead captures, you're not going to be making these extremely long where you're asking all of these questions because it creates more friction in order to get them in the system. You want it to be quick and easy. So on lead capture forms, you really should only be asking the necessary information that you need in order to get them in the system. And then once they're set up, now you can send them out a questionnaire to collect more information. A perfect example here is you saw my lead capture form. I also have what's called a bridal questionnaire. So let's say that a bride is filling out the information on the website, but I need to know all of the bridesmaids who are going to be in there, maybe some event information. I don't want her to have to fill all of that out on the website page just to get in the system. So I have her fill out a short form. And now I can send out this questionnaire where she can put in all of the information for the bridesmaids, the event, location, all of that. So that's the biggest difference between lead captures and questionnaires is lead captures are normally shorter and questionnaires could be a bit longer. And the other thing is that questionnaires are only used once they're set up with a project. Lead captures create projects. Questionnaires cannot create projects. They're more for once they're in the system. Now you can use these to send out information to a client. So that's the main thing with questionnaires is you can use these for a lot of different things. You could use them for like welcome packets. You could use them for notes if you want to take notes internally on a client or send out a form to a client for them to fill out for homework. Another example here that I have is a wedding timeline. So if I'm I'm doing hair and makeup and I want to send out a form to the bride to have her fill this out to let me know, the time frames on when things are going to happen. You could create something cool like this for them to fill out as a timeline. There's a lot of different purposes for a questionnaire, but basically it's for either collecting information from a client or providing information to a client. So either one there, that's what you would use a questionnaire for. So feel free to experiment with that. A lot of cool things you can do with those. So those are questionnaires. Now we're going to talk about packages. So let me click on packages here and talk about this here. So packages in Dubsado are designed to put all of your products and services in one place, the things that you're going to invoice clients with. So when you're creating invoices for clients, all of those services that you have are going to get created here. Now, with packages, the term packages might be misleading for some industries because you might say, I don't really have like a bronze, silver, gold. That's totally fine. Packages literally just means your products or services. So as you can see here, I have add-ons in here, a la carte items. With packages, I'll just click into one here and open it up. You can basically create a package and put in as many line items that go with that package in here. So if it's just something that has one line item, then that's totally fine. But the whole purpose of this is that you're putting in these base products, and once they go onto a proposal, which we'll get to next, or if you're putting these on invoices, this is kind of the building block for that invoice. And once it goes onto a proposal, or once it goes onto an invoice, you can make custom changes if you need to, but this is really just your starting foundational piece. And then once it goes into a project or on an invoice, you can make customizations if you want to. But what I want to draw your attention to here is you can see that I have add-ons in here. So if someone wants to do like a spray tan, it's $45. It's just extra. So you can put add-ons in here. There's no need to, just have only if you have bronze, silver, or gold type packages to use this. You can create cool custom packages. We do have some other webinars on that, so I won't jump into too much detail there because I don't want to take up too much time. But this is basically where you're going to put in the foundation pieces for your services. So those are packages. Now, I want to jump into proposals. So with packages, if you think about it in the terms as far as an illustration of packages are kind of like the food items that would be at a restaurant, what it is that you offer, the proposal would be your menu. So the proposal is going to be how you pitch your pricing to a client. I normally recommend to use a proposal whenever you're at that phase where you're ready to pitch your scope of work, your pricing, what you offer. That's where the proposal comes into play. So I'm going to click into this proposal here. And this proposal is going to basically be a way that you can present your work to a client in a very beautiful way. You can have it all customized with pictures, your different work that you have, and you can also pitch your pricing here. So I'm going to walk through this proposal just so you can get an idea of what this is designed for. So I have this proposal here. And for those of you who are going to ask questions kind of about this proposal and designing it, this is actually from Boss Project. They have templates that they have created specifically for Dubsado, and you're able to buy those from their template shop. And I believe that Becca will have a link that she can probably put in there. I know she's kind of walking through the chat here, but you're able to have that in there. And you can purchase some of the templates that they've built, which are very, very cool. And we'll kind of walk through these. I'm not a designer myself, so I didn't really create these templates. I just added pictures and whatnot into them. So with this, you can create a proposal, and this kind of gives you kind of like a welcome message. I'm so excited to get working with you. This is what we've done. You can have like a cool gallery. So this is like all the different work that I have done. So you can kind of create these different things to show your client the work that you do whenever you're ready to pitch pricing. I have kind of a little testimonial thing talking about great reviews that I've got from doing work with people. But this is the main piece of the proposal. This is the core of the proposal. I've taken my packages and I've put them on this form. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's a package element. There's no other form in the system that you can put packages on forms with. This is exclusive to the proposal. So that's why I've kind of used the analogy that packages are your food items. The proposal is your menu. It's how you're going to pitch pricing to a client. So I've added all of these different packages that we just looked at. I've added them onto this form. So now when I send this out to a client, they can go through, they can select what they're interested in, if they want some of these optional add-ons that I have. But basically what this is going to do is once someone fills out this form, it's going to automatically create an invoice in their project. So this works like an order form. They can fill this out, select what they want, and an invoice gets created in their project immediately with their selections. Now, if you're doing more of like a custom quote, you would probably only do one package, and then you can customize that before you send it out. So you can use these still if you do customized work, but just so you get an understanding of what this does, once they submit this, an invoice gets created. Now, the other cool thing that you can do with proposals up at the top here, if we click on settings, is you can add a contract and an invoice to go out with the proposal. So if this is my bridal proposal and I click on this, I can add my bridal contract to go with this bridal proposal. So what is this going to do? They can fill out the proposal. It will then take them to the contract where they can sign, and then the invoice that got created from the proposal will then show to them, and then they can pay a deposit or they can pay everything up front. However, you want them to pay, we'll get into that next, but you can actually add all of that together and send it out in one bundle. This way you don't have to send out a proposal, get that back, send out a contract, get that back, send out an invoice, get that back. You can do it all at once. And that is really what the beautiful piece about the proposal is you can combine all of that together. Now, that's the proposal. Now we'll talk about payment schedules here. So if we go to templates and payment schedules, this is going to be where you can create how you want your client to pay on invoices. So in here, if you do, let's say 50-50, where 50% is required up front, 50% later, or if you do something where there's a fixed deposit, maybe you require $1,000 down, the rest later, maybe you do pay in full or a 34-33-33 combination. Basically with the payment schedules, this is where you're going to develop your different structures on how you want the client to pay. Now, of course, each industry is different. You might do a 50-50, you might do a fixed deposit, but this is where you're going to create these. The other thing with payment schedules is that you can also add payment reminders in here as well. So that way, if you want to remind them that a payment is coming up or that there's a late payment, you can add those in here. But anything that has to do with payment reminders or a payment schedule, another term that we like to use is payment plan. Some people say that. This is going to be where you can create those. So that's the payment schedules. And now scheduling. So underneath the scheduler here, this is where you can build your different pieces of availability, your different appointments that you offer. So a good example here, because this is kind of more of the hair and makeup industry. Again, I don't have examples for every single industry, but just so you get an idea, this is where you can put in the consultations that you might have. Typically with hair and makeup, they have a trial appointment where they'll go in and, kind of run through to see if they like the way that it looks. So I created a trial appointment. If you're a coach, you might have one-on-one coaching sessions. If you're a designer, maybe you have kind of like a reveal session where you, talk to them about what it was that you put together, a presentation. This is going to be where you can build all of your different appointment types, the different appointments that you offer. And each one of these can have its own availability. It has its own parameters, own appointment duration length. This is going to essentially kind of replace things like Calendly or Acuity, where you would typically build in your availability and then send it out to a client. Now, there's a lot of different ways to use this scheduler. You can send this out in a workflow. You can email this to somebody. There's a way where if you click on the little link icon, you can grab the direct link, or you can, put this into your website. There are some specific things that you'll need to do if you're planning on embedding this. You'll need to add a lead capture form to it, so that way it collects the client's information. But with the scheduler, the main purpose of this, like I said, is to put your availability into the system. And like I said earlier, if you have your calendar connected, your scheduler is going to look at what's on the Dubsado calendar and block off whatever's not available. So that's how and why you would want to have your calendar imported, so it can look at what's available. So with the scheduler, that's how that works. And now the next two things we're going to talk about, this is going to be very brief because I know we're kind of getting close to time. So I want to make sure that we stay right at about an hour. So the next two things we're going to talk about are client portals and task boards. So client portals in Dubsado basically give you a way that you can have your clients log in and they can actually look at the contracts, the forms, scheduler templates maybe that you put in there, invoices, different links that you've put in there, maybe PDFs. They can log into one central location and have access to everything that you sent them or that you've uploaded into the portal. Now, I'm not going to go through all the different things with the client portal because there's a lot. We have other webinars on that. But just to give you an understanding of what's possible, I'm going to click into one of the clients here. And right down here is where you can turn on or off their portal. But I'm just going to log in to this portal here really quickly, just so you can see. And we're going to log in here. Now, with this here, I don't have this customized, but you can customize the look of your portal underneath the settings. So in the settings where we were at earlier, you can put a banner in here, you can customize the colors, but the main reason that I wanted to jump in here is just to show you basically what's going on. So when they log into the client portal, any emails they haven't read, if there's forms they haven't filled out or invoices that they haven't paid, those are going to show up in here. If we go to the projects tab here, this is where people can actually see all of the information that are inside of those projects. So as you can see, this is the only project that I have for this client, and this is her daughter's Sweet 16 party. So in here, the invoices, contracts, there's ways that you can put in Google Drive links, or if you do Pinterest boards or different things like that, there's a lot you can do in here. But basically, this is where a client could log in and view all of that information. So we do have client portals available. Again, this is kind of an extra. You don't have to have this, but it is available if this is something that you think your clients can benefit from or that can enhance the client experience. The other thing that I'm going to talk about here really briefly is task boards. Let me click over here. So I'm underneath tasks right here and then underneath boards. This is where you can build in task boards. And task boards in Dubsado are going to be a lot like boards that you would see typically in programs like Trello, where you can do kind of project management based things where you can create columns and cards and all of that good stuff. So I'm just going to call this a general board here, and I'm going to add this. And again, we have other webinars on task boards, on client portals. Feel free to check those out. Just for sake of time, I'm not able to jump into everything in there, but you'll kind of see what's possible. Underneath the boards here, you can create your different columns and cards. So if you're familiar with task management systems or project management systems, it kind of has that same feel. So if this is, let's say, the first phase of my project, and I can make, let's say, another phase here, and we'll make phase 3 here. What you can do is you can add in the different tasks that you need to get done. This is completely manual. This has nothing to do with automation or workflows or anything like that. But you can come in here and your different phases, these are the things that I need to get done, and you can add these into projects. So that's another thing. It's completely manual. There's no automation in here. This is more for if you want to create maybe like a project board. If you're a web designer, once they sign and pay and you have kind of a system that you follow for actually building the website, collecting templates, creating a wireframe, all of these different things, you can build in tasks that you need to get done and your different phases. So that could be a lot of different things. I've seen people who are in the event space where they have like 10 weeks out, this is what they need to get done. 8 weeks out, this is what they need to get done. A lot of cool things you can do there, but that's also available. So now the next thing, and we're going to wrap up here. We're basically right on time, which is very surprising for myself. But once you're done with these templates, this is something that we stressed with the top 5 things. Once you're finished setting up your templates, now part of the homework assignment is not to go in and set all these things up. So don't worry, you don't have to get all of this done before next week. But once you're finished setting up your templates in Dubsado, it's important to practice sending these to yourself in a test project. This is going to be very crucial for the people. Maybe you're in this webinar and you already have some things set up. You want to make sure you test these out by creating a test project with yourself as the client. So you can go into the projects page here and you can click new project if you want to and make yourself a client and start sending things to yourself. This is going to get you comfortable with how Dubsado works. If you're uncomfortable with sending things out, this is a great way to practice. Testing these things out ensures quality, comforter, I can't even pronounce it today. I'm all over the place, with consistency and timing and all of those different things. So you should set it up in this way where you can go in and test these things out if you have things that are built. So that is everything that I have today. I'm going to go over the homework assignment, a couple announcements, and then I'll answer any questions that people have in the chat. So give me just a few minutes here, just in case someone needs to leave. I want to kind of get through the homework assignments and announcements, and then I will go ahead and open it up for questions. So your homework for now, and this is going to be between now and next week. So a week from today, next Monday at 9:30 is part 2 of this series. So the goal is between now and next Monday to get these things finished. So number 1, set up your essential settings. So go in those essential settings that we talked about: email, payment processor, calendar, branding. Get those things set up. If you want to connect your QuickBooks and Xero and all that, you can do that, but get your essential settings set up. Number 2, decide how you want to structure your projects. If you look here in my projects page, I've decided how I'm going to split up my folders. Maybe if you're in the photography space, every session that people do, every session that someone does is a new project. When they do their maternity shoot, that's a project. When they do their newborn shoot, that's a project. Maybe someone has done web design with you a couple times. That's a new project each time. Maybe if you're in the accounting space, every quarter would be a new project, or every year would be a new project. You need to decide with your industry how you're going to organize your projects. That's very, very important. And you want to develop a good naming convention. You don't want all of your projects to be named random things that you can't find them really easily. So as you can see here, I usually have the name. So like Gracie, Sweet 16. This is Mahone and Williams' wedding, and all of my wedding projects are named the exact same thing: Martinez and Banks' wedding with the date. You want to develop your naming convention where all of your projects are named the exact same thing or the same format. So that's part of your homework, is to decide how you want to structure your projects and how you want to name them. Another thing I'm going to add in here really quickly, if you're using the client portal, you'll see that whatever you title your projects is what's going to show up in this dropdown. So if you're a photographer and you've done a couple of shoots for somebody and you have 3 or 4 projects for them, if you've titled it, "This client is a pain in the butt," that's what's going to show up for the client. So you need to make sure that whatever you title your projects, especially if you're doing the client portal, you want to have kind of a standard naming convention so that way it translates when they're in the client portal. So that's what you should do. That's your second thing. Number 3, decide on your workflow options, on the workflows that are going to begin. And that kind of ties into number 4, build your lead captures. So the next thing that you're going to do is decide how many lead captures do you need? Do you just need 1? And you're going to kind of do a branch of your different workflows? Do you need multiple lead capture forms? You want to go in and build these out, and at least at the very minimum, understand how you're going to do your workflows. You don't have to build your workflows, obviously, but you just want to get the framework for how you're going to do it. Get that blueprint set up so that way you know what it is that you're going to build. So that's number 3 and 4. They're kind of the same thing. Build your lead captures and decide how your workflows are going to start. And then number 5, start to take inventory on what pieces you're going to need in Dubsado. So everything that we talked about in this last half, canned emails, contracts, packages, just start to think to yourself, maybe if you want to jot them down, that's fine too, but start to take inventory on what you're going to need. Do you need a proposal? Maybe you don't. Do you need a payment schedule? Maybe not. You want to start getting an idea of, okay, these are the things that I'm going to need when I get to my process. Again, you don't have to build them. Just take inventory on what you need. Just get a good idea. And that's it for the homework. So between now and Monday, it's really easy. Just get an idea of what it is that you need and some of those other things there.